Remember the days before everyone had a smartphone? When your pocket held a wallet, keys, and maybe a chunky cell phone just for calls? In that world, one company gave us a glimpse of the future. That company was Palm, the pioneer that put a computer in our hands, long before Apple or Google dominated the scene. But if they invented the future, why aren't we all using Palm phones today? This is the story of the brilliant rise and heartbreaking collapse of Palm, the company that saw the future but couldn't survive it. Let's rewind to 1992. Jeff Hawkins, Donna Dubinsky, and Ed Colligan founded a company with a simple but revolutionary idea: a digital assistant that was small enough to fit in your pocket and easy enough for anyone to use. After a few early attempts, they struck gold in 1996 with the Palmpalot. This thing was a sensation. It wasn't the first personal digital assistant, or PDA, but it was the one that got everything right. It was sleek, it was simple, and its graffiti handwriting recognition was surprisingly intuitive. The Palmpalot syncs seamlessly with your desktop computer, keeping your contacts, calendar, and notes perfectly organized. It was the must-have gadget for every tech-savvy professional. By the early 2000s, Palm wasn't just a player in the PDA market, it was the market. They had a cult-like following and seemed absolutely unstoppable. They were the Apple of their day. Riding this wave of success, Palm naturally moved into the next big thing, combining their PDA with a cell phone. The Trio line of devices was born, and for a while, it was the definition of a smartphone. You could check your email, browse the web, and manage your schedule, all while making calls on the same device. It was magic. The Palm OS, famous for its speed and simplicity, had legions of loyal fans. But beneath the surface, cracks were beginning to show. While beloved, the operating system was aging. It wasn't built for the modern, multimedia-rich internet that was just around the corner. It struggled with multitasking and lacked the robust capabilities that developers would soon demand. Palm had the lead, but the ground was already starting to shift beneath their feet. And this is where things get messy. Instead of unifying and pushing forward, Palm made a fatal strategic error in 2003. They split the company in two. The hardware side became Palmoni, focused on making devices. The software side became PalmSource, tasked with developing and licensing the Palm OS. The idea was to have other manufacturers build devices running Palm OS, just like Microsoft did with Windows. But instead of creating a powerful ecosystem, it just created confusion. Who was Palm, the hardware maker or the software one? This internal division slowed everything down. Product development stalled, innovation stagnated, and the brand identity became muddled. While Palm was busy fighting with itself, new competitors were gathering at the gates, ready to storm the castle. Then, on January 9, 2007, the world changed. Steve Jobs walked onto a stage and introduced the iPhone. In an instant, every other phone on the market, including Palm's entire Trio lineup, looked like a relic from a bygone era. The iPhone's revolutionary multi-touch screen, its full-featured web browser, and its elegant, buttonless design was a complete paradigm shift. The tiny physical keyboards and stylus-driven screens that defined Palm's products suddenly felt ancient and clumsy. Apple didn't just release a better product, it redefined what a smartphone even was. For Palm, it was an extinction-level event. They were completely and utterly blindsided. Their market leadership, built over a decade, evaporated almost overnight. As if the iPhone wasn't enough, another giant was waking up. Google's Android operating system emerged as the perfect weapon for every company that wasn't Apple. It was open, it was free, and it was powerful. Phone carriers, desperate for an alternative to Apple's strict control, embraced Android with open arms. Suddenly, the market was flooded with a huge variety of Android devices at every price point, from manufacturers like HTC, Motorola, and Samsung. Palm was now caught in an impossible vice. At the high end, they couldn't compete with the polish and desirability of the iPhone. At the low and mid-range, they were being swamped by the sheer volume and variety of Android phones. They were squeezed from both sides, with nowhere left to go. But Palm wasn't dead yet. They had one last, brilliant card to play. In 2009, they launched a completely new operating system called WebOS, alongside a beautiful new phone, the Palm Pre. And honestly, WebOS was incredible. It was years ahead of its time. It introduced features we now take for granted, like the card interface for multitasking, elegant gesture-based navigation, and a notification system that was far superior to what Apple or Google had at the time. Tech critics raved about it. It was a masterpiece of user interface design. But a great OS needs more than just a good review. The hardware on the Palm Pre was underpowered and felt cheap. Marketing was a disaster. And crucially, they couldn't convince developers to build apps for the platform. Without apps, a smartphone is just a phone. WebOS was a genius idea, a beautiful vision of the future, but it was too little and far too late. The failure of the Palm Pre and WebOS was the final nail in the coffin. The company's finances were in freefall. Their stock price, once the darling of Wall Street, had collapsed. They were bleeding money and had no path back to profitability. In 2010, the tech giant HP swooped in and bought Palm for $1.2 billion, promising to give WebOS the resources and scale it needed to succeed. There was a glimmer of hope. Maybe HP's massive global reach could finally get WebOS into the hands of millions. But it was a false dawn. Plagued by internal politics and a complete misunderstanding of the consumer market, HP's leadership fumbled the integration. In a shocking move, after just over a year and one failed tablet, HP announced they were killing all Palm hardware. Just like that, the dream was over. The end was swift and unceremonious. HP, having no use for a mobile OS, eventually sold WebOS to LG, where its legacy lives on in a surprisingly effective way, powering LG's smart TVs. If you've used an LG TV recently, you've seen the ghost of Palm's brilliance in its card-based interface. The Palm brand itself was later licensed and briefly revived for a tiny companion device, but it was a niche product, a footnote with no connection to the pioneering spirit of the original company. The giant of the 90s, the company that defined mobile computing for a generation, was officially gone. So, what can we learn from the epic collapse of Palm? Their story is a powerful, cautionary tale for the entire tech industry. It proves that being first, and even being the best for a time, is no guarantee of survival. Palm's innovations, from the idea of a sync digital assistant to the multitasking cards of WebOS, laid the groundwork for the modern smartphones we use every single day. Their DNA is in your iPhone and your Android. But innovation isn't enough. Without perfect timing, ruthless execution, and a thriving ecosystem of partners and developers, even the most brilliant ideas can wither and die. Palm taught us that in the world of technology, you're either adapting and moving forward at lightning speed, or you risk becoming a museum piece. Thank you so much for watching. It's a tragic story, but a fascinating one. What are your memories of Palm? Did you ever own a Palmpalot or a Trio? Let me know down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into tech history, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing for more stories like this one. We'll see you in the next video.